Hi, this is Olivia Wentz, and this is my action research project, The Effects of Project-Based Learning in the Science Classroom on Vocabulary and Concept Acquisition. So my name is Olivia Wentz. I am in the STEM Masters of Education and Assessment Curriculum and Teaching program. This is my last class. I will be graduating soon. I am a 5th grade teacher. I teach science and social studies. I teach at Wrightsville Elementary School in the Eastern York School District. So my purpose, what was I hoping to learn from this project? Well, the purpose of the study was to determine the effect that project-based learning has on 5th grade student vocabulary acquisition and their conceptual understanding in science. What problem did I attempt to solve? I wanted to see if students would construct their meaning and understanding through this inquiry learning practice of project-based learning compared to the traditional bookwork methods of learning that they have been used to from the past, and why I've been hired into my school district in a new position that will focus on providing a quality science curriculum to 5th grade students. And with the advent of the STEEL standards being introduced to Pennsylvania, teachers are growing concerned with academic achievement in science, and I am as well. The new academic standards for science, technology, engineering, and environmental literacy and sustainability prioritize a shift away from the students simply memorizing scientific facts. The standards will shift the focus to students' participation in scientific investigations and discourse. So my research question, what effect does project-based learning have on student vocabulary acquisition and conceptual understanding acquisition in a 5th grade science classroom? So here's some research background on the next few slides. Research suggests that project-based learning supports the development of problem-solving skills, student motivation and interest, student science achievement, retention of knowledge, and science literacy, and meaningful collaboration between students. So one of the studies conducted explored the effects of project-based learning for STEM on elementary school students' science literacy. The questionnaire that was used in the study showed excitement towards the project-based learning and a boost in student motivation and interest. The hands-on excitement of project-based learning that centers around scientific and engineering process can evolve science lessons, improve student attitudes, and boost student motivation and interest. Researchers conducted a study centered around middle school curriculum called Project-Based Inquiry Science. The results showed that students who participated in project-based science curriculum outperformed the students in a comparison curriculum. Another study compared the effectiveness of project-based learning with more traditional teaching methods. The findings revealed that 5th grade students' science achievement significantly improved with the project-based activities. The study suggests that teachers need to alter teaching styles towards student-centered and project-based activities. Another study centered around 3rd graders' academic, social, and emotional learning. Results showed that students who had received the project-based learning intervention had higher scores in standardized tests and recorded higher levels of self-reflection and collaboration when involved in project-based learning. And my final one aimed to analyze the effects of project-based learning on students' academic achievement, attitude, and retention of knowledge. The results found that the students in the project-based learning groups had better academic achievement and retention of knowledge than the students in the traditional teaching group. So my design, I had a data collection, I had an intervention that was a roller coaster project that they did for their project-based learning. You're going to learn more about that. After exploring prior research involving project-based learning, I decided to utilize a mixed methods design for the research. My data collection method utilized qualitative observational field notes and observation checklists. My method also utilized quantitative pre-assessment and post-assessment data. The data was collected from 2 5th grade science classrooms. My grouping. The experimental treatment group that had the project-based learning intervention was composed of 20 students. The control group that utilized the traditional paper and pencil bookwork activities was composed of 19 students. There were different variables. I define project-based learning as a teaching practice that involves students designing, developing, and constructing hands-on solutions to a problem. Student groups participate in a project-based learning activity that centers around physical science, specifically force and motion. They design, prototype, engineer, and improve a roller coaster. I define traditional paper and pencil bookwork learning. This is a teaching practice where students independently practice a science concept through paper and pencil activities. Students participate in a typical classroom style of science lesson where they complete textbook readings and answer questions. For science vocabulary acquisition, that's what I'm measuring. This centers around students learning new words. In the science classroom, students need to be able to discuss vocabulary, elaborate on vocabulary, and use vocabulary in multiple contexts. For science concept acquisition, a science concept is a scientific idea that describes or explains something to help provide understanding. Students can acquire fundamental scientific concepts through active involvement in their learning. Right here are some screenshots of the roller coaster lesson plan. We started with going over the standards, some driving questions. We had a kickoff event where they watched a video, they had discussion. We did some roller coaster research, and then we went over the constraints on their engineering materials, and we went through the engineering design process for project-based learning. Then the lessons went day by day as they moved through the engineering design process and complete their project-based learning. So my pre-assessment and post-assessment, this is a quantitative data source. Both groups took a 20-question multiple choice and short answer pre-assessment centered around physical science, vocabulary, and conceptual understanding. So that's how we started. And then they took a pre-assessment or post-assessment later. So we have my pre-test, post-test control group research design. You see the experimental group and the control group takes the same pre-test, and then the treatment is delivered in the experimental group, and then they take the same post-test. So here's some of my findings. These are for my qualitative observational field notes findings. So I did take some field notes during this experience. So the control group themes. They began positively at the beginning of the phase, but it shortly turned into unproductive time during the book work. In the beginning, students spoke to others about the vocabulary, concepts in the textbook. Students asked many questions in the first lesson. Students quickly became fatigued and lost attention to the task as the time went on. Over the next few days, students needed increased amounts of prompts to stay on task. Students would read the chapter lesson, but then would require substantial teacher support from me to answer the end of lesson review questions. There were a lot of side conversations going on as they became accustomed to this style of task. Students were not really discussing the vocabulary any longer, and then I saw a lot of frustration and fatigue across the board. There's also a lot of restlessness, fidgeting, whistling, and room wandering became more prevalent as the study went on. It was clear that the engagement and motivation declined through the week with the control group. Now for the experimental group, with the roller coaster project-based learning, I saw a lot of engagement and collaboration. Those were some clear themes. Students were active in discussions right from the beginning. They asked questions as a class. When students discussed their ideas and their plans, every student in the class was engaged in the process. Students did not need many prompts to stay on task. Students used many vocabulary words while discussing their designs. Every student was engaged in working on their roller coaster designs. Things were very busy in the classroom. Each student was positioning roller coaster tracks, ripping them and positioning the tape, and testing the marble down the track. They creatively used furniture and the walls. Students are using books and stools to create platforms. The classroom was a lively place during the entire experience. I also had qualitative observation checklist. This was used to record vocabulary concept discussed during the project-based learning intervention. This qualitative data helped me keep track of popular vocabulary usage and understanding. Students became most active with their vocabulary during the planning of their projects and then during their presentation of their projects, so it wasn't over the whole course of the project. I observed accurate usage of vocabulary concepts along with the misconceptions that students had involving vocabulary and concepts. So, to go back to the quantitative pre-assessment and post-assessment, the following themes emerged from the analysis of this quantitative data. I saw that there was higher scores in vocabulary and concept knowledge overall for both groups. However, the experimental group had the largest gain of 11.5%. Here is a chart that I created that shows the pre-test in blue, the post-test in green, and then in purple, we see the gain for the experimental group and the control group. Here is some descriptive statistics for the pretest. It's descriptive statistics for the post-test. And then I also took a look at topic analysis. The assessment consisted of 20 questions, many questions centered around the same topics. So after performing a topic analysis of the assessment, there was some vocabulary and concept understanding that improved after the intervention. Other vocabulary and concept understanding stayed the same or decreased, but not as often. This helped bring forward student strengths and student misconceptions about specific vocabulary concept understanding. So momentum was the specific topic that students were working to understand, but it was also a vocabulary word that they were trying to use and trying to master. So I did see that in these figures. Conclusion. What did I learn from this project? Well, based on the themes that have been brought forward during this study, I plan to continue to pursue project-based learning opportunities in the science classroom. Overall, the project-based learning experience appeared to be more engaging and collaborative than the traditional paper and pencil bookwork that students had been familiarized with within their prior science classrooms. With the STEEL standards coming to my classroom next year, it is essential to utilize project-based learning. And how will this impact my role as a teacher? Based on the themes that have emerged from my data, I plan to continue to pursue and explore the benefits of project-based learning within my science classroom. I want to answer, how often will the students benefit from project-based learning activities? Beginning next year, I would like to utilize project-based learning as often as possible. I also want to answer the question, what other science topics would students benefit from learning through project-based learning experience? So I think certain science topics will lend themselves more to project-based learning than others, but I'd like to widen my horizon with that. I plan to research and utilize more resources to help our class carry out these learning opportunities. This will take some substantial planning to accomplish these goals, and I need to make changes to my instruction, especially for a project like this. I need to do this by encouraging more student discussion and verbalization of science vocabulary and scientific conceptual understanding. Students benefited from the hands-on and minds-on learning from a project-based learning experience. I also want to develop rubrics that students can reference while completing these experiences so they can fully understand the expectations. And I also want to provide a framework for the communication and presentation part of the student project-based learning. They really enjoyed this part, but I think that a rubric would our framework, would encourage students to utilize a larger variety of vocabulary during their presentations. It would help students describe their experience and the results in a clear and specific manner. And last, how could your project inform your school? It could inspire teachers to explore other effects on other benefits such as collaboration, problem-solving skills, student motivation and interest, student science achievement, and the retention of knowledge and science literacy. I think that those things could be explored for project-based learning. I need to communicate with other science teachers within my district to encourage others to utilize project-based learning and to collaborate on providing future project-based learning opportunities for our students. I think collaboration would be key so we can do as many as we can. I also think that this project would inspire directions for future research. So for anybody, including myself, future research could include variations of the study but with different science units topics. The study could also be done again to explore other variables such as project-based learning effects on student collaboration and problem-solving skills. Thank you so much for joining me with this process. I cannot wait to watch your projects. Happy graduation.